friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jamie, and today we are talking about my November wrap-up and December TBR. Yes, December is finally here, or already here, I guess I should say. I'm actually not ready for it to be December, for it to be the final month of 2024. That's just crazy. And honestly, I am looking and feeling not well because I don't know, the second that it hit December 1st, it got so cold here in Georgia, my face dried out. I am like, it's freaking out. I could feel the soreness in my throat like the second it hit December. Like my body is just like, no, we do not want the winter. So I'm a bit sad, honestly. I really love Halloween and I love fall, so the fact that that's now over is really depressing for me, but we will press on. And honestly, I don't think this is going to take too long because I did not read a lot in November. I just wasn't feeling it. I'm still kind of feeling in a little bit of a rut, especially when it comes to reading, so that's what's going on. So I think this is going to be a shorter video than my usual wrap-ups and TBR. Let's get into it. Okay, the first book that I read or finished in November was Regrettably, I'm About to Cause Trouble by Amy McNee. I did read part of this in October, finished it in November. This is a witchy story that is set in 1535, around the time of King Henry VIII, Anne Boleyn, that time of English history. And this is set in England, and this is about a woman who she is about to be married into some pretty high society, and she's excited about being the perfect wife. She's going to be a mother. It's kind of everything that she's wanted, and she's really looking forward to that future. But she does have a mark on her skin, and it is believed to be a witch's mark. And when her husband sees it for the first time after they're married, because it's in a very delicate place, he freaks out and he's like, "You're a witch, you need to get this sorted, you can't be in my life." And she's kind of outcast from her society and she has to run away, and she finds some witches living in the woods, and they welcome her and they kind of teach her their ways. There's a lot going on in this book. This is also, with it being historical fiction, it actually does tie back into real historical events. Like I mentioned, King Henry VIII and his many wives are actually part of this book, so it does involve a lot of that history. I don't think you need to be well versed in that history to understand it, but that is actually like pretty central to this story. And then another thing about this book is that the main character is, I won't say unlikable, but she definitely she's like very much has an attitude, and she is very resistant to everything at first, which is kind of understandable considering her upbringing and, you know, what she wanted from life. So she's very resistant to everything at first, and I think that could be annoying for some readers. I thought it was okay, but it's just a different tone, I would say. Like, it's not the most like uplifting thing in the world. Like, I've read a lot, you know, a lot of witchy books include themes of feminism, feminine power, things like that. And yes, that's definitely in here, but the tone is a little bit different. I really did enjoy this. I thought it was very different and very unique and just like an interesting take overall. But it's going to be different, I think. And I don't know if you too typically like the witchy stories for like the feminine, female empowerment angle. Like, it is in there, it's just coming at it from a different way. And especially in the beginning, it can be a little bit difficult to get over our character's perspectives, because she has a lot of things that she needs to unlearn. And especially in the beginning, it can be difficult to be in that perspective. But I did overall enjoy it, and I just like adore this cover, and I'm excited to have it in my collection. Next up, I read The Faculty Lounge by Jennifer Mathieu for my book club, and this follows the lives of the many teachers at a Texas high school. It has like this episodic quality to it because each chapter is told from the perspective of a different teacher, and this in this structure, each chapter also tackles a different social issue. So there's things about race, bodily autonomy, immigration, what else is in there? I mean, like, literally it runs the gambit of all the social issues that are, you know, being talked about in contemporary society. So it's really clever. Like, the structure actually does work. Sometimes, like, and I have said in the past that there are books that it does drive me crazy when the author just tries to like cram in every single conversation because it doesn't feel natural. But this, because of the structure and because of the way that it is done by taking each character specifically and having them tell their own story, it did feel like a little bit more like it worked for me, I guess, a little bit better. I also love the structure of it taking place across the entirety of a school year. I love that. Just the structure really worked. I don't think the writing itself was anything super memorable to me. I mean, I think this is a good book club book. I think this is good if you enjoy kind of having those like real human conversations. These big political conversations that feel kind of very theoretical at times, this kind of gives a very human perspective to each of those issues, which I appreciated a lot. The downside, I think, to that is that, like, and I do feel this way about a lot of books, but I think like the person that would most benefit from hearing the human angle to these stories is just not going to pick up this book, which is just very unfortunate. But I think the structure is really fun. It also, of course, talked a lot about the education system in America and the struggles that teachers have to deal with. And yeah, it just gives a very brutal, honest perspective on the life of a teacher and why so many people still feel called to it, despite how in America, teachers are very, you know, massively under rewarded and under appreciated for their work. So it gets into all of that. So I did definitely enjoy my time with it. Next up, I read James by Percival Everett. Yes, this is the book that has been sweeping the prizes this year. Everyone's been talking about it. It just won the National Book Award, actually, and it's Barnes & Noble Book of the Year, if that means anything. I think it's still in contention for the Pulitzer. So this is a very big deal. Booker Prize nominee, didn't win, but was in there for sure. This book, very big deal this year. And this is the story it's a retelling of Huck Finn, of the adventures of Huck Finn, from the perspective of the character of Jim in that book. His name is James. This is told entirely from his perspective, and James is a slave, and he is forced to go on the run when he finds out that his owner is going to sell him and separate his family, and he goes on the run to avoid that situation. And while he's on the run, he accidentally gets tied in to Huck Finn's wild antics, and it kind of puts him in a position where he can't untie himself from Huck Finn because of what happened. If you've read Huck Finn, I mean, spoilers for Huck Finn. Huck Finn fakes his own death, and because James was also missing at the same time, people assume that James killed Huck Finn and then ran away. So their fates are kind of inexorably linked here, and that's why he goes on this adventure. This is just, I mean, it's such a well done book. It's amazing. But what's interesting to me is that it's very accessible. Like, it's not super like wordy. All the language is very much just, it's very readable. Like, it's so readable. The chapters are very short chapters. Like, it's just very, very easy to read, which I think is interesting because of how many people are put off by, you know, reading a classic like Huck Finn. People don't want to read it because it's hard to read. And I was also a little bit intimidated because with this being the story of a slave, I was just concerned that, you know, my heart wouldn't be able to handle the content. And there are certainly some tough moments, like, absolutely. But it's not completely that. It is just, it's overall like this adventure story. And I actually did not have any experience with Huck Finn at all. I've never read it. I honestly had no idea what even happened in that book at all. But I still found this fascinating and so engaging to read. The story is just, I mean, it is like a big adventure story. I won't say it's fun necessarily, but like it is very fast paced. A lot of action stuff happens constantly. You feel for James, you feel every emotion that he feels at every moment, and it's just really, really powerful stuff. Also, this does deal with the way that slaves had to act in front of white people in order to keep themselves safe, and it's just a really fascinating look into that if you're unfamiliar. So just, I mean, I don't need to sell you any more on this book. This is being highly renowned and praised for very good reason. It's great. It's not a long read at all, and you should read it. Okay, and then here's what happened in November. I didn't read much more because I actually, on Halloween, I went to Savannah, Georgia, and I got my own deck of tarot cards. And I have no experience with tarot or anything. I just thought it would be fun. I bought them at a shop in Savannah on Halloween while I was there for a trip. So I just thought it would be really fun. And so a lot of my November has actually been reading tarot guidebooks and understanding what is going on here and how to do it and studying and things like that. So I read like a bunch of them. Like I read like 6 or 7 tarot books. The one that I'm currently reading that I actually have like a physical copy of is Understanding Tarot, the Handbook to Reading and Intuiting the Tarot by Cassie Uhl. I haven't gotten super far in this right now, but this is what I've been doing with my time, is I've been reading tarot guidebooks and I'm gonna make a little hobby of doing some introspective journaling with my tarot cards. But the one tarot book that I did actually want to mention that I read and I found it really fun is Kitchen Table Tarot by Melissa Sanova. I don't know, as a complete tarot newbie, I'm been very intimidated by the like very tough guidebooks that are like, this is exactly what it means and you have to memorize all the 78 cards, and it's just, it is a lot. It's actually a lot. I've enjoyed it. Like, it's, for me, I always loved learning something new. I loved, I was, very much like a teacher's pet, so I loved learning, and this seems very challenging, so I was very drawn to it. But this book is just so approachable. I listened to it on audio and I just found her voice like so friendly. Like, she really does make it accessible, and I just had the best time. Like, even if I don't end up being a tarot master, which I don't anticipate I will be, but I just had a fun time listening to her talk and tell stories, and yeah, just have a good time. So that's what I've been doing with my time. And then I read The Night Guest by Hildur, I'm gonna mispronounce this last name, Knutstier. She's Icelandic. This is a short horror novella, and it is short. Like, it is, not only is the page count really short, but there are some pages that have like 3 words on them. So like, it is really, really short. This is a horror story about a woman who she finds out, or she kind of realizes that she has been sleepwalking, but the catch is that she's been sleepwalking like 40,000 steps per night, and she's waking up with bruises and blood on her and everything, and she has no recollection of what happened at all. So she's kind of on a quest to figure out what the heck is going on. I think some people have pitched this as like, oh, it's kind of a thriller, it's like a psychological thriller. I don't know. I found this like really pretty genuinely scary. Like, I would call this horror. I would not classify this as a thriller. I mean, it's, especially at the end, it does get kind of crazy. Yeah, I would say it's a horror novel, and I don't even want to say much more because it is so short. This is just a very much like, you can read it in one sitting, and yeah. I had a really good time with this. I know that some people have had less of a good time, especially because of the ending. It's very ambiguous. It's very weird. I like ambiguous endings, but I definitely, found a little bit of an issue with the end of this book, but it doesn't take away from the experience that I had while reading it. I was just like so engaged. I was like freaked out the whole time. I was like, there's just some freaky stuff going on, and I really loved it. I don't know. I love the cover of this book. I want to get a copy for my collection because I just love this. It just really worked for me, and it's so short. So like, if you're looking for something that is going to engage you and yeah, you're interested, definitely read it. It's so short. But I will say, if you are not a fan of ambiguous endings, maybe you will be frustrated by this. And then I had some situations because for my TBR teacup poll for the month of November, I was supposed to read a book with an animal on the cover, and I had intended to read Emily Wilde's Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, the second book in the Emily Wilde world. And I got halfway through it, okay? So I have been reading this. I did read this in November. I got halfway through it, but I'm still reading it. We'll continue on into December. But that meant that I was not going to hit my goal of reading my TBR teacup prompt. So what I did was I decided to pick up The Wood at Midwinter by Susanna Clarke. I had picked this up earlier and I meant to read it later, actually in the winter, but I wasn't going to hit that prompt. So I was like, I'm just going to pick it up and read it. Okay. Now, when I bought this book, I bought it because I really love Susanna Clarke. I love Piranesi. I have not read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell because that book is like 1 billion pages long. And I don't do very well with long books, but maybe one day. But I really love Susanna Clarke. And I'm like waiting for her to come out with another book. And she came out with this short story. I mean, like the cover is so gorgeous. I love the gold foil on it. It's beautiful. But let me say, the audacity of Miss Clarke to charge $18 for this. $17, excuse me. $17 for this book is literally crazy. Now, I was prepared, for a short story, a short little thing. I mean, look at this. It's tiny. I knew it was going to be short. I didn't really know that it was basically a children's picture book. This isn't even a short story. It's not a novella. It's barely a short story. I would really honestly, the closest thing I can think of it is a children's picture book. The story is just, there's just not enough going on. The illustrations are really beautiful, but the story is just so short that I just, I don't even have anything to say about it. It's literally so short. What can I say? It's so short. So I don't know, if you adore Susanna Clarke and you want this in your library, I mean, go ahead, buy it. I did, but I kind of regret spending $17 on this because it's so short, but it's I mean, I have it now. And because of that, I completed my prompt. And the last thing I want to mention about November is that I just have to get it on the record, but I did start House of Leaves. I started it, I opened the book, I did not get very far. I mean, I'm on page 30 something. And here's what I'm going to say about it. I think that with this book, I'm not going to be a purist. I think that I know, for a fact, I've watched reviews, I've read reviews, people agree that reading this entire thing is kind of a huge waste of time. And I'm just not that interested in all of the details. I'm more interested in just what the structure actually is, what Danielewski does with it, and what I've read so far, and again, I've only read 30 pages, but the story inside a story inside a story, and the academic writing, this writer who's critiquing a film, I mean, that's all, I love it. I love that because I love academic writing, and I love, I went to school and that's all I did was read critical papers about films. So I love that aspect. I love that it's a satire on academia. I love all that, but I don't feel the need to completely understand every single thing that's in here. I think my interest in it is just it's hilarious, right? It's hilarious that he commits so hard to the bit. That's funny to me, and that is honestly admirable, but I'm not going to be really strict about this. I'm just going to kind of continue reading, but I'm gonna skip over the boring stuff. I just am, and I don't care if that makes me a fraud or something. Like, I don't care if I'm reading it wrong. I really, truly do not care. I'm only gonna get to the stuff that interests me because, you know what? Life is too dang short. Life is too short. I have enjoyed what I've read of it so far, but like, don't expect me to be an expert in this thing by the end of it. Okay, getting into my December TBR, well, I still have these 2 books to be working through, so, I mean, that's gonna take a little bit of time. But a book I will absolutely be reading in December, that is When We Were Orphans by Kazuo Ishiguro. I'm so excited to finally read another Ishiguro. Well, I did read Clara and the Sun. I didn't really like it. That's why I like kind of pushed that one out of my mind. But Ishiguro wrote one of my favorite books of all time, Never Let Me Go, and I am chasing that high. The reason I'll be getting to this one is because it is our November-December pick for the Backlist book club that I host with Caitlin Bandy from Bandy's Books. I will link information down below. Yeah, I'm very excited. We are going to be having our live show either at the end of December or in the first week of January, depending on holiday schedules. But I'm very excited. I think I'm gonna have to like dig into this one sooner rather than later, just so I can just guarantee that I get it done. Another book that is very, very high on my list, that is The Safekeep by Yael Vanderwooden. This is a book that, another one, a literary fiction that has been making the rounds this year. It was a Booker finalist, and just, I mean, all of my favorite literary booktubers have adored this book this year, and it's not that long, so I feel like if I can just like sit down with it, I will be able to get through it. So this is pretty high on my to-do list. And then everything else I have is just kind of like, maybe, we'll see. But my priorities are these 2, and then getting done with those other ones I just showed you. A couple things I'm thinking about. For Christmas, I'm going to be spending time at a family's house, and typically there's just a lot of downtime at the holidays. And so hopefully I can translate that into reading time, and I'm considering bringing with me The Secret History by Donna Tartt, because I'm thinking if I'm like confined in a single space with like virtually nothing else to do, it might like really push me to read this book. So I am considering that. I have a couple other short books on my TBR that I'm like, they've been on my physical TBR and I'd love to get them off. That is The Department of Speculation by Jenny Ophil. This I think is like a love story, or like it documents the falling out of a marriage, and very large print. So I think this will be a quick read. I have The Children Act by Ian McEwan. This is a book that was on my 24 in 2024, and I have not even looked at it for the entire year, but it is short. I like Ian McEwan's writing style, and I think this is a book I can easily get through if I actually decide to pick it up. A couple other books that I'm very interested in and have been kind of calling my name. The first one is Rejection by Toni Tulathamudi. This is I think it's like a short story collection, and they are all featuring the theme of rejection in some capacity, and I have heard that this is like fantastic. Like, I have heard it is stunning, and it's funny, and it's engaging, and it's everything. So I'm like dying to read this. I've been wanting to read this all year. I finally got my hands on a copy of it during the Atlanta Indie Bookshop crawl, which my video for that will be coming out after this one very soon. I've heard it's fantastic, and I cannot wait to read this. So this one's kind of like bubbling up. Like, I kind of feel like I might want to get to this before the year's over. And then I recently got this from Aardvark. That is Where I End by Sophie White. And this is following a woman who is in Ireland, and she like lives in this isolated house, and then someone comes to visit her. I don't know. Yeah, a woman and her daughter come to stay with this woman, and it seems dark, it seems scary, it seems like everything I would love. So I'm also very interested in this. And finally, if I am looking for something more lighthearted, I did get this art copy of The Book of George by Kate Greathead, which has since actually come out, you know, fully released. But I got this, and I intended to do a reading vlog where I read all of my advanced reader copies, and I kind of scrapped that. I know I'm not going to get to it, And I don't know if I'm going to get to this by the end of the year, but I had to pick it up because my husband's name is George, and I was like, well, this seems so fun. So if I want something more lighthearted and maybe funny, this would be the direction that I go. And the last thing we have to do is pull a new prompt from my TBR teacup, because technically I did complete it, even though definitely that Susanna Clark one feels like it was cheating because it's not a real book. But I did it, okay? Here we go, let's pull a prompt for December. Let's see. Oh, it's upside down. The newest book on your TBR. Okay, that is really exciting because I have so many new books. I got a lot of new books because of my Atlanta Indie Bookshop crawl, so that's very, very exciting. I think, like, I think because I got so many books at once, I'm not necessarily going to do the actual last one I physically bought, but I think that is a really great opportunity for me to read Rejection, because I got this on the Atlanta Indie Bookshop crawl and it's the one that's really jumping out to me. So I think that this can count because I got them all together. So this one can count for that. It is a new release. It's brand new to my TBR and I'm so excited. I bought it like a couple days ago. So wonderful, wonderful prompt and a good way to push me to read this. So there we have it. Those are all the books that I read in November, plus some possibilities for December. We'll see what actually happens. Let me know down in the comments below if you've read any of these. Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to have a little chat with you in the comments. Otherwise, let me know what was your favorite book of November and which book are you most excited to read in December. I would love to hear and let's have a little combo. Let's have a little conversation. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your day, week, month, and year, the final moments of 2024. So have a wonderful December, and I will see you back here next time. Thanks so much. Bye.